Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm going to encourage us all to come back into the room as we bring to life FinTech across the UK. Good afternoon. And I think for all of us in this room, we need to use our headsets. If you can put them on and let me know that you can hear me okay. I got thumbs up from Julia, thumbs up from the front. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nicola Anderson. I have the absolute privilege to be chairing this brilliant panel of FinTech entrepreneurs and the absolute privilege of following the brilliant report that Streets and Whitecap and Innovate Finance have just done as we think about scaling innovation and FinTech across the UK. I equally have the privilege of being the Chief Exec at FinTech Scotland, and it's an absolute honour to be talking to these innovators and to be thinking about what we can do to really drive FinTech innovation across the UK. So without further ado, I'm going to allow the panel to introduce themselves. I'm going to just move my chair a little to give you some space, Tony. So I'm joined by Tony from Wealth Wizards. I'm joined from Mike from Snugg, Ella from Wagonex, yep, amazing, Anish from AccessPay, and Gabriela from Goodwith. Fantastic. So we're going to hear from all of these brilliant entrepreneurs in a moment or two. So Tony, can we start with you and we'll just go across the panel. If you could give a brief introduction to yourself and to the business and the stage that you as a business are at. And we'll do the same question for everyone, and that'll give the audience a bit of a flavour for who they're talking to today.
Sure. So I'm a founder of Wealth Wizards. So we're West Midlands-based, Leamington Spa-based FinTech. So we create a white label platform for sort of forward-thinking organisations to create digital guidance and advice journeys with their clients. We've been going since 2015, originally raised corporate strategic finance, and we're now backed by Royal London.
Fantastic. Mike.
Hi, yeah, Mike Teall. I'm Chief Commercial Officer at Snugg. We're an Edinburgh-based startup, so Nicola and I spend quite a lot of time together. So what's Snugg? Basically, Snugg is a digital platform. We help banks green their mortgage portfolios by helping their customers green their homes. It's something, if anyone's tried to green their home, it's a very complex and expensive thing to do, and we try to make it simple and affordable.
Thank you, Mike. Ella, you're welcome.
Hi, I'm Ella Hastings, COO of Wagonex. Wagonex is a car subscription software company. We bridge both divides in that we have a B2B and a B2C product. So, benefits and challenges having both elements of that in our business. We work with some of the largest automotive names in the planet, so exciting times. We are based in South Wales. We came to South Wales through Development Bank funding in 2019 and have had a lot of support in the region, and I can talk about some of the challenges that we faced. Obviously, automotive has had a challenging time over the last 4 or 5 years.
Thanks, Ella. Thank you. Hi, Anish. You're very welcome.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Anish Kapoor. I am founder and CEO of a company called AccessPay, which is based up in sunny Manchester. AccessPay, we like to think of ourselves as the tech in FinTech, and what that means is that large companies, FinTechs, challenger banks, normal banks, use our technology to automate anything they do that touches their own banks. We just raised our Series C, about $24 million. We've raised about $36 million in total. So yeah, give you a sense of what stage we're at.
Great, thank you. And Gabriela.
Hi, I'm Gabriela. I'm CEO and founder of Goodwith. Goodwith is a financial behavior analytics startup that works with banks to help them understand credit invisibles and the risk that they represent using psychometrics and behavioral data. We are based headquarters in Bude in Cornwall, deepest, darkest, and we are just now piloting our solution, what we call a readiness score, with some financial services. So we're really excited about that.
Fantastic. Isn't it an absolute pleasure to be sitting here with this breadth of talent, these entrepreneurs, and this exciting opportunity that we have across the UK as we think about FinTech innovation. It's an absolute pleasure to be sitting alongside you this afternoon, I should say. I'm just back from New York. My time zone is all over the place. So thank you very much for joining me as we help our audience understand a little bit more about the experience and the journey that you've been on. What I'm hoping to do is through our conversation, we'll touch on a number of different themes. So it'd be great to get your perspectives and reflections on investment and raising, and perhaps, Anish, we can start with you there. We'll also then think about that kind of B2B and B2C difference, and we'll have a conversation around that, as I know many of you are working in that regard. We'll think about that opportunity for broader scaling, and we'll throw out some hints and tips and useful things that we can think about. And then what we'll do as we finish our session, we will invite a call to action, which I think would be really useful for us all to hear. So that's what you can expect from our next half an hour as we guide this conversation. So let's kick off right with the investment opportunity. And you've already touched on it, Anish. So your reflections, experiences, hints and tips as you would in that investment journey.
Well, I had hair when I started it, so that hopefully gives you a sense of what it's like. So I think there's definitely been a marked shift in the investment landscape, I think, over the last couple of years. So from a very frothy environment, shall we say, where it was substantially easy to raise, to one which is now much harder. So what I think we are, I suppose you'd call us kind of a growth stage business. So the stage we were at, it was very difficult actually to raise capital, primarily because those investors are looking for the exit, in sort of the next 5 years or whatever, and with multiples where they are and what have you, it just makes it difficult. It makes it more difficult to get those kinds of rounds done. But the feedback we were kind of getting from our existing investors was they invested across a number of stages from seed, through to our stage, and they were still actively investing in the early stages of the investment cycles. Obviously, we have no direct experience of that, but that's what they were telling us. The other key thing that we've seen is there's now much more money in the regions. So we have two regional investors, both sort of Manchester-based, and the last one just announced a couple of £100 million fund that it's raised specifically to deploy in the region. So I think actually there's, in a weird way, there's probably more money available in the regions than maybe in London, dare I say.
And that's an interesting development, isn't it, as we think about that connection between the regions and London. Is that your experience, Tony, as well?
Well, in our journey, we got our original. We self-funded the business, that was probably the hardest raise, getting my co-founders to put their money in. But we then kind of went straight to a Series A from a corporate strategic investor.
Yeah.
We did try and raise money from VCs, and that was back in sort of 2015. So that was pretty tough at that point.
Yeah.
And possibly the right thing for us as a business, I think, because you have to be at the right stage and the right cycle of the market to raise VC, and the VC expectations are appropriately on a certain path, and perhaps that wouldn't have worked for us. So it's hard to know, but my sense is it's probably the right thing for us to raise money from a strategic investor, which is what we did in the first case.
Very interesting. And it just goes to show actually the importance of knowing your business and that route that you need to take as you think about your investment journey. In the US, they were talking a little bit about how we have beautiful valuations in the UK. I think that was a comparison about the overinflated, perhaps, valuations that some in the US had seen. Sorry, I think you were going to make another point.
Well, no, I was just going to say, because our route to market's B2B, so actually to have a corporate investor who was also going to be a customer was incredibly helpful, and our first customer. So it helped us get from where we were to sort of an enterprise-ready business.
Yeah.
So having that understanding, which we wouldn't have got from just basically a financial investor.
Yeah. And Gabriela, just thinking about your business and the opportunity and the way you're taking it forward, have you got reflections or hints and tips that you would share with us as you think about investment?
Yeah, so we're quite different. We're a very, very early stage startup, and our opportunities, in fundraising, came through non-dilutive grant funding. So we looked around because we knew that what we were trying to do was innovative, but also kind of outside of a very strict fintech space. I didn't have gray hair when I started.
It looks good on you.
So it's been a difficult journey, and for us it was trying to raise as late as possible so that we could have enough time doing the R&D that we needed to do to figure out, is this innovation, does it have legs, can we prove it? It's a science-based approach, so that's kind of very different from a lot of fintechs in the market at the moment. So and trying to explain what that actually means early on was difficult, so we wanted to delay it as much as possible. But fortunately, we've got Innovate UK grants, Health Tech grants, and then friends and family to support that match funding. And now we're going through pre-seed, so talking to impact investment. So it's kind of a different, it's not strict down the line fintech, so it's kind of approaching those investors that are like-minded and want that impact, and probably a little bit more patient in terms of return.
Really, that point about really understanding your journey and where you want your business to go continues to really resonate, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And Ella, I'm going to come to you in a second as we move into that kind of B2B, B2C conversation. But Mike, just aware of Snugg and the grants and the work that you're doing, that kind of breadth of contribution as you think about Snugg's journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's, without sounding like Smug from Snugg, we're quite lucky, and I think it's a benefit from being in your kind of late 40s when you join start a startup, that you tend to have richer friends and relatives. So we got through our first 2 rounds of funding through a couple of high net worth individuals and a broad range of friends and family. Plus, because we're in the sustainability space, we've had a significant grant from the Department of Energy. So that's kind of taken us through our first 2 years, and now we're stepping into the VC kind of world a little bit in terms of the funding we need through the rest of this year. So I think the one thing I'd say about the regional side of it, and our investors are kind of all over the country really, but the profile that we've got from being part of that FinTech Scotland community, the profile alongside academia, government, banks, etc. It's massively contributed to the sort of buzz around Snugg and all of the raises that we've done.
Good to hear. Good feedback. Thank you. I'll take that.
Yeah, I'd say we've had exactly the same experiences, and through the eyes of our CEO who moved the business to South Wales because of the Development Bank of Wales funding. I think it was quite an eye-opener for him to see how connected the region is. You're 2 phone calls away from somebody who could, support you with a business problem. And in general, everybody in the region is incredibly supportive of each other. So we came to South Wales in 2019 following that funding, and then joined the FinTech Wales Accelerator, where we became really part of the South Wales community and met our strategic investor, Admiral. So they then have supported the business for the last couple of years, and just to have that level of direct access to these large financial service organisations, I think, as Toby's mentioned many times, you wouldn't see that in London.
Yeah, really interesting point. I think you anticipated my question, Ella, because one of the questions I have, I guess, for you all is that connectivity in the regions and that ability to do business. If you are a B2B proposition with some of those large financial institutions, have you found that kind of regional connection useful?
So useful.
So useful.
Incredibly useful. And to be able to have high-level contacts within one phone conversation. But again, with the FinTech Wales community in particular, it's a very active network, and you get a lot of the larger organisations wanting to give back and support. So they are not just there and accessible, but they're turning up wanting to see how they can make a bit of a difference in the community and to support businesses like ours.
I can see lots and nods of the heads. And Tony, you mentioned Royal London.
Well, I was just going to say about the connection in the region. So Supertech West Midlands has been fantastic. They run a connector program, so we're connecting us up with bigger businesses in the region. And it's it's not just about sales. It's also about getting insights on what their challenges and problems are and being part of that dialogue. So it's been super useful.
Great. And I can see you're nodding as well. In agreement, or any other points that you'd like to?
No, it's been super interesting. So we work a lot with the main UK banks, And everyone always says, oh, well, that must mean that you're always, sort of on a train to London. I mean, I actually am, but that's not because of that. What's interesting is that, whilst the HQs of those banks might be in central London, all the teams that actually do the work are typically outside of London. And so in Manchester, we find ourselves sat on probably one of the largest cohorts of kind of back office processing for banks, which has been great for what we do because that's kind of our business. So I think it's not just about the kind of connectivity. I think actually, depending what region you're in, you may also find that there's a real hub of actual core fintech expertise or knowledge about your potential market.
Yeah.
And just to build on that, I think, Edinburgh Financial Services, in terms of big banks, probably isn't what it was in the heyday of 15 years ago, but I don't think there's any coincidence that our two big banking partners at the moment are NatWest and TSB, both of whom have a big presence in Edinburgh. And I think, we live in the days of everything's virtual. Thankfully, we don't have to fly down to London quite so often as we used to, but there is still a value in that local connection. And I think those two banks in particular were very keen on the fact that we were a Scottish business. I think it really helped us building those partnerships.
Good.
I would just have to say that we're, imbued, as I said, we're very disconnected. And it hasn't been a disadvantage because we started under COVID, essentially. And by then, everybody was accustomed to taking Zoom calls and what have you. So for us, it's, we are far away from everything, everyone. But it hasn't been a disadvantage. It's been kind of now accustomed to taking calls and things like that. So, yeah.
And I was really struck by when we were chatting earlier, Gabriela, your connectivity with the universities and how important that is actually. And you talked about science-based approach and R&D.
Yes.
I think one of my lessons from the US into the UK is actually I think we're leading on some of that here in a strategic lens. The likes of Innovate UK, our UKRI councils are really thinking about fintech and financial services strategically. So I was really interested in your thoughts on the importance of that connectivity with the universities and the value that you've had from that.
Yeah, I mean, it's invaluable. We have been we focused on the kind of Southwest universities of Plymouth, Exeter, Falmouth, and just the kind of the academic side of what we're trying to do. They've been really supportive. So kind of helping us validate our kind of mental health and mental well-being approach. So it's very scientific, they're very supportive, they've given us grants. We're working with, hopefully, the University of Edinburgh, again, from kind of a science academic perspective, how do we validate it and show, impact and measurable impact to reducing money-related anxiety. So all those things I think are, and we plan to hopefully work with more universities as we scale. But it's, for us, again, trying to be a science-based, having a science-based approach, it makes sense for us to work with academia.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
And Ella, if I could come back to you, please, because when you talked about Wagonex, you talked about B2B and B2C. Yeah. And from the report that Streets and YCAP have done earlier, there were some reflections actually on the majority of fintechs in the UK might be B2B, but indeed there may be more commercial advantages with that B2C proposition. Would you offer us your experience and reflection just on that comment?
It's a
big question.
It's huge. It's a big challenge in their business, and for the 5 years that I've been with Wagonex, it's a constant. Should we focus our attention on one over the other? But they work so well together. They power each other. They fuel each other. One becomes, a sort of fuel for the other, if you were. So having that B2B foundation and the repeatable recurring revenue to then build on that with a sort of sustained growth B2C proposition is what we're trying to achieve now. So, as we talk about the markets have changed, it's slightly less frothy. We no longer have our board members saying you need to spend more, you need to drive harder. It's a very different narrative, as we all know. And so actually, using that sort of very sustained growth approach to the driving the B2C, again, without going into too much detail, because I could be here for 10 minutes talking about the business, but in a nutshell, the two work really well together, very symbiotic relationship. It's taken some balancing to get it right, but we're in a good spot.
Great.
And so I'd highly recommend it. There are challenges there, of course.
And I'm just thinking about Wealth Wizards and indeed Snugg, because it's a B2B to B2C journey,
exactly,
isn't it?
yeah.
Lots of bees. Yeah.
I mean, I think we've chosen, we want to basically reach as many end consumers as we can. And I suppose having previous life experience of trying to acquire customers into a sort of investment proposition is very expensive. And so you're going to have, I'd love to do that at scale, I really would, but you need quite a lot of money to go and acquire those clients in that particular market.
Yeah.
Even and build a brand. And I think it's worth doing, but I think we've benefited in terms of getting scale and reach quicker through going a B2B route.
Yeah.
Though that's got its own challenges, for sure. I mean, some of our, I think I mentioned it, but I think our longest conversation from start to completion of the sale was 5 years in a B2B.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were much quicker than that, but it can be really,
that
really
procurement
painful.
cycle can be painful. Yeah.
One of the, I guess, learnings that we've had is that as many fintechs will have found that it takes a long time to go live with a financial institution, and therefore you don't really want to wait for your first deal with a bank before you get any customers, end customers that is. So we went live with a consumer proposition, direct to consumer proposition. We did a bit of Facebook advertising just to get a kind of core of users up and running, and that really helped, because then we could demonstrate that we'd got some traction with users to some of those banks that we were talking to. And then obviously they bring the scale without us having to spend too much on the D2C sort of marketing approach.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're finding that's really the beauty of the business. And also that direct relationship with the end consumer is invaluable as we're building and finding what we're offering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Anish, in the payments world, are there any kind of innovation or kind of how's that consumer journey impacting the development of your proposition?
Yeah, so there's lots of changes going on in the world of payments, I think, for the consumer at the moment in the UK. So, and I think it's fair to say that, you can innovate much faster if you are able to kind of direct to the consumer or direct to the end business. If you wait to kind of work through a bank as a distribution partner, that just takes a long time, right? Because of all of this regulation they've got internally and what have you. So, so we've definitely seen a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
It's just taken a while to kind of for these things to get traction in the market.
Yeah.
Just because of the fact you've got to distribute directly first.
Yeah.
And then the banks kind of come through as we just talked about, and then they'll push it through into the market.
Yeah. What really strikes me about all of you actually is you're thinking about the impact on the consumer as you develop your proposition on your business. That's, that's just inspiring, really. So as we think about our call to action, I'll come to that in a minute or two. But we've focused a lot on investment and that kind of B2B or B2C proposition. Would there be anything else in addition that you would say has been a really important tool as you've been growing or scaling your business? Any hints or tips that you would offer our audience?
It's easy, and I think we'll probably all say the same. It's people.
Yeah.
People.
Getting the right people at the right time. And again, for our region, we've got a hotbed of talent coming out of, Admiral, Confused, Go Compare, Motonova Finance with Lloyds. We've got all of these great hotbeds of talent available, and it was, again, aside from the opportunity with DevBank, it was the talent that brought Wagonex to Wales, and we've got a great team who are very much behind. Although we're starting to see those organisations come looking to poach people back.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's that cycle of life.
Oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything in addition, Tony?
Yeah, similar thing. I mean, I think in West Midlands we've got a really good pool of tech talent, and interestingly enough, since we've been there, there's other businesses that are doing either parallel or similar things to us.
Yeah.
And okay, is it competition? But it's actually been super useful because
Yeah.
there's actually a pool of talent.
Yeah.
And we've even, some people have left our business and set up another startup in a similar space, which has been great.
Yeah.
So it's really sort of created an environment where there's tech talent and there's people who know how to do stuff. And when you're trying to grow your business, as much as it's great to train people who have got a great attitude, you also need people who know how to do.
Yeah. Talent and community, I think, are coming
Yeah.
through as really important themes here. Anish, is there anything you would offer?
Same theme. It is all about people. I think the one thing I think this is probably a general thing for the UK generally versus say the US. So we have some US investors, and there's a lot more people in the US that are going through the scale-up journey. And it's a whole, and so that's what we're kind of grappling with now is like we need people that have been through that journey. So there's not many of them in the UK, and there's even fewer of them in the regions. So I think that's the one ask, if you like, for the UK PLC is we need more. I mean, it's kind of a what is it, chicken and egg, isn't it? Kind of, we need people to go through it more, so we can create more people, so we can do it more.
Yeah. We need to kind of allow entrepreneurship to be an important profile, an important career kind of thing. Yeah.
My mum still tells me to get a proper job, so.
Gabriela, what's your perspective?
Yeah, again, we because we started under lockdown, we have a distributed team, so everybody's, they're across the region. But fortunately, of the 9 full-time, 6 of them are from the Southwest, so it just happened to be like that. I mean, we've got GCHQ up in the corner, not that we've poached them. But
That's good to have aspirations.
Absolutely. But yeah, it's been, it's when you're trying to do something for impact, you get people with that passion and very talented, and it's what attracts them, like the end product, and they're all kind of Gen Z or millennial age, so they're very passionate about what we're doing, and that attracts for us the talent.
Yeah, that's excellent. And Mike, you
Just one final thing to add from our experience that's really helped us is participation in some of the kind of accelerator programs that exist out there. Happy to divulge more offline maybe, but we've done both Lloyds and TSB, we've done EY, we're currently doing the Accenture FinTech Innovation Lab. There's pros and cons to each of those, and it's worth choosing which ones you do, because you can spend a lot of time doing these programs if you're not careful, but we found them invaluable in terms of both building some of the partnerships that we've got, but also some of the coaching that we've had from some really quite impressive people that have been there, done that with in startup world, and they give you some really, advice around investment, pricing, sales, product development. You can get quite a lot from those programs, so I would recommend looking into those.
Excellent. So finally then, our call to action as we think about scaling and continuing to grow in the UK. I know there's lots of brilliant hints and tips already, but one thing that you would want us to do and have in our toolkit for the UK as you scale, I'm open to anybody that would like to start, or I'm happy to start at this end. Tony?
It's hard to choose one thing. I mean, access to investment.
Access to investment. Yeah.
If I had to put one thing.
Great.
So what was the question again? What's the
one thing we need in our toolkit to help us to scale?
Yeah, money's good.
Money.
But a good product helps.
Money.
Yeah.
Good product, money.
I'd say keep facilitating the connections, because again, if the product's good, the money will find its way to you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ella.
And I say people that have been through all stages of the journey.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and start looking, we've got scale-ups, but we need to start looking at those companies that are, pre-seed and early stage.
The pipeline.
Yeah,
fantastic point. Really excellent point. Well, I've learned so much as I've been sitting here listening to these brilliant founders and these brilliant leaders as we think about the journey of your business, thinking about end consumers, you think about investment and so much more. So please, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Please thank the panel. And I think we've managed to finish relatively on time, and I think it's now, it's off to lunch perhaps. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.